Thanks for joining us for Elko Live today here on KELK. Today's program is in advance of the not so regular Elko County Commission meeting, and we'll start with a fire commissioner meeting at 1:15 this afternoon. But we're going to check in with Elko County Commission Chair John Karr. The reason it's not a regular, it's a regular meeting, but you have to table a lot of things because it's spring break, right, John?
Well, Delmo's was justified vacation, and we knew months ago, weeks ago, whatever, plenty of time that he wasn't going to be there. But no, Travis has a lawsuit down in a different county, being an attorney and all that. And Rex had something going on that he unable to attend. So kind of flukily that Brian and I will be the only ones in person there. And we're just hoping that Rex will be able to call in and Dem will be able to call in to have enough quorum. So we really gutted the agenda to be able to what has to be done. And the next ones will move on to the next agenda.
Yep, you'll be paying for it then. And it happens.
It'll be a nice long day, next one.
Yeah,
this one should be pretty short.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll start off with the fire commission meeting. And I had the pleasure of having Chief Matt Peterson on last week, in fact. And so he talked a lot about accomplishments, things he's looking forward to, the new fire permit website. It's going to streamline that process. They issue hundreds of burn permits every year.
And that gets confusing, how many times somebody's ordered one, especially the very outsides of the Elko city limits. So they go, well, are you a county, a city? My father-in-law's actually had this happen before, and sure enough, all the fire trucks and everything show up. And he's like, well, here's my burn permit. Told you I did everything right. And, oh, well, that's county. He goes, well, I am county. Well, you're kind of in the city, so the city showed up. So, yeah. But anyway, he is trying to streamline it, but he'll also be working the city on that, too.
So Chief Peterson, again, has some great goals. He did talk about, although it's just an ambition at this point, some consideration in the future for creating more of a complex for EMS vehicles, a new facility, that kind of thing. And it's something you've talked about too?
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. Whether he stays there and expands and then we move the county facility road crews or something, which wouldn't make sense, but I'm just saying we're looking at all options. But no, we really need to. There's 6-8 fire trucks out there that are out in the weather, and some weird reason freezing water, it's not good on piping and stuff in a truck.
Yeah, fire trucks especially.
Yeah, it's weird, huh? Kind of bad. So it needs to happen. We're not trying to build a Taj Mahal, and I think we overbuilt Lamoille with that one. They needed a new station, but that was a much nicer facility and much higher price than we first expected. But either way, I'm not going to do the Taj Mahal, but we do need another facility.
So just a comment, too, on Lamoille. They had a lot of community buy-in, though, right? Did the county pick up the entire tab for that one?
Who was it? Sestach's, I think, that donated the land, and I could be wrong. I forgot. But one of the families out there donated some land. And they did do some, but that fire station could be sitting in the middle of the city of Elko or Boise or wherever and still be a very attractive station. That's my problem. It was designed still more as a city station, fully manned, everything, all the bells and whistles. And, Lamoille definitely pitched in and deserved a nice station, and they have a very active volunteer. So this is not a criticism towards them in any way whatsoever. It just definitely really killed the budget for years to come on outlying ones that they truly don't have a station at all, and which Lamoille was. Their station wasn't exactly big and anything else. So they needed one. But my point is we don't need to be at Taj Mahals in the future. And
I know Chief Peterson, when he talks about one that's maybe located in the city, he would like to locate it with maybe the ambulance service.
I can see that because I personally don't like where the ambulance is at. I think it's been a passive, whether I was on the school board or even now the commission, that we never worked together on the county or the school district taking over that part of the land and having more parking for their performing arts or even those 2 or 3 houses. They really should have been long-term looking at picking those up, and that'd be one part of their complex. But I'm not on the school district, and it never happened. So there you go. But either way, the county should be working with the school district on that. It's not a very good place for the ambulance barn and the 4 or 5 ambulances outside again, and the EMS. That's not an EMS bus, but I forgot what the actual acronym we call that emergency bus too. But once again, sitting outside doesn't do it any favors.
Yeah. And again, it is right there within the high school complex, so on the campus. So you can see why relocating that would make sense, certainly in the future.
I think so.
Okay. And that does beg the question, too. Another guest who was on, Sheriff Aitor Narvaeza, and he's talking a lot about the plans that they're awaiting from the architect on expanding the jail and the behavioral health unit. We don't really see that on the agenda, though.
No, I haven't seen any markups on that yet, but it should be here soon. And we will be going over with a much finer tooth comb than we did, for example, the Moyle Station. The Moyle Station ran into a problem of who was really running the ship back then. I'm not now criticizing that again. Once again, I don't want people in Moyle up in arms about it.
They do have a nice facility.
No, it's a beautiful facility, but it's so they would talk to the volunteers and they talk to a couple of commissioners. I'm talking about the architect here, and also talk to the fire district. So you never truly had who was the one signing the check, I guess, would be the thing. So that's why it's as grand as it is, but I think there were some mistakes as well.
Okay. So again, talking about the expansion to the jail and having a specific behavioral health unit on the jail. John, you're up to speed on all that?
Yes, it's sad that that's our day and age, but the more and more I've learned on fentanyl and the longer lasting effects, some back 30, 40 years ago want to OD on coke or meth or something. It really, if they survived, for the most part, you didn't have a lot of the long-term effects. The fentanyl, they're finding out, first off, lasts a lot longer to come down off their high, but also can be permanent that the old brain's not wired the same anymore after that. And so it's unfortunate, but no, that's what we have to look at.
Yeah, and the sheriff said that Lakes Crossing isn't accepting any more inmates from Elko County. They all have to go to Las Vegas now.
Well, unfortunately, nobody wants to pay for inmates. That's, once again, not warm and fuzzy, and so... But yet it's where we're at in society. We've got to do something.
Mm-hmm. So these are the times, and again, we'll see it on a future agenda for the county commission. It's not on anything today. So,
correct.
Yes, we're just talking about some capital projects, kind of easing into an agenda that's kind of been slashed and burned, if you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really, the main thing is part of the budget. We have to but it's really not finalizing the budget, so that's part's a little bit irrelevant. But it is the jackpot one that's going to be the most important in my mind.
Is that the land?
Correct.
Okay.
We finally have a developer, a genuine, legit, licensed historical company that I think really has the proper background to be able to expand housing up in Jackpot, and it really needs to happen. I believe Jackpot was on its last leg until the marijuana shop come up there, and it's really helped bring the tourists down from, whether you're for or against it. I don't smoke stuff myself, but that's legal now, and that's where it's at. And a lot more people are coming down, just like 40 years ago. They come down for gaming and liquor. Well, that's changed in Idaho, so now marijuana is still illegal in Idaho, so they come down for that. But now we have another truck stop up there, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but no, it's a big truck stop. It's bringing in the revenue. And for Jackpot to expand, they really need some housing.
So this proposal is a Summit Edge with a preliminary lot layout. It shows 146 single-family residential home sites. And basically the county helped to facilitate this transfer of about 55 acres, although it does require the work of Congress, right? Congressman Amadei, is this included in his land proposal? Or is this one's different?
This one's different.
Okay.
We are still trying to get other lands. Other lands? Is that the proper grammar?
I think so.
The other lands, because we also are still looking out by the motocross track, the shooting range, that's more of that proposal.
Oh, okay. The congressman's going to be here. Just got to set up some time with him, so that's great. He's going to be here for the Lincoln Day dinner next Saturday on the 12th.
Correct.
So I'm sure he'll talk more about that as well. So you're right. On the agenda today would be discussion and consideration to approve the parcel, which is about 55 acres in the unincorporated town of Jackpot, to Summit Edge. So that is, it permits the conveyance of the property for less than fair market value because they're going to build all these homes. And we do know that there's some legislation that would allow maybe some contractors or subs to come in. I don't know whether they'd have to have a Nevada license or they get something temporary, John. Do you recall what I'm talking about? Because that's also been a problem, getting builders across the state lines.
I'm not familiar with the bill. I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't read it. But no, right now it currently requires a Nevada license, contractor's license, whether plumber, electrician, whatever. And sometimes getting that can be extremely difficult, or even the desire to come get one, because Boise and Twin Falls, that whole valley area, whatever, southern Idaho is doing well enough that they don't have to come to Jackpot. So I don't know. We'll see if there is a bill to let some of the outliers, even like a Wendover, to have a Utah company or something come. We'll see.
Talking with John Karr, our Elko County Commission Chair, in advance of an abbreviated Elko County Commission meeting today. It will start with the fire district meeting. That's at 1:15. I don't want to short any of Chief Matt Peterson's glory, but I do know, I think he's going to present his budget.
Correct.
Yes.
And once again, it's really preliminary. This is not the final budget, so this is there'll be plenty of time to look at more details in the future.
I did print off the budget, the attachment, which anybody can find, elkocountynv.net. Go to agendas and then click on the blue highlighted section and you'll be able to find attachments. I didn't know if there were any surprises, anything jumping out. We're always looking at those big numbers of the Elko TV district, John, and there might be some future uses or some ways the TV district can evolve to meet some needs in the community.
I certainly hope so. I've probably been too vocal on, I don't feels right they took that big a tax increment, but in all fairness, the city and the county didn't work together on, they're leaving that tax increment on the table. Is anybody going to snatch it up, or is it going to be a tax break for the citizens of Elko? And it wasn't totally thought out, and the TV district snatched it up. To be fair to them, I don't know 100% on their agendas of if it's going to be spent wisely or not, so I can't really comment. My gut says no, but once again, I don't have proof on that. Yeah,
it looks, according to the way this is marked up, that they actually accrue more than the fire protection district each year.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're definitely looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm starting to investigate, yes.
And again, there's no malfeasance. Nobody's suggesting any wrongdoing. It's just that the TV district, they're administering over-the-air TV signals, and in some cases, some radio signals, I believe, or some towers, and there could be some work that could be done to benefit the community as a whole in the future, just in a different way.
Emergency. I'd have to agree with that. I don't think, there's anything illegal, corruption. I don't believe any of that. I just ponder, is it 100% necessary and the best use of taxpayer increment through all the people in Elko County?
So that'll be something to discuss moving forward. Anything else maybe that jumps out, John, for you as far as the budget goes? We heard a lot in the city's presentation on the preliminary budget. Julie Davis talked about, with the new software that the state taxation department is using, the city is short like $2 million in sales and use tax collections because of a software challenge. Clark County is short like $49 million.
Well, we ran into our own problems with the property tax software we did, so I think they'll get it figured out. Somebody should be able to go in and double check everything on the old pad and pencil and go, wait a minute, what's really wrong here? Have we been wrong for years, or is this new software wrong? So I think they'll get that figured out. The only thing we're not going to be able to discuss much, but is still our legislature is in session. And some bills, I don't know why they're doing them. I have no idea. I'm not a legislator, but it's questionable at most. But some things really could have a big impact. And I had just left a message with CJ, the superintendent of the school districts, that, hey, if this, with the daylight savings bill, I forgot what number it is.
Oh, you're right. There's an Assembly bill and a Senate bill.
Right. Then it looks like, unless our governor vetoes it, that will pass. And here's a little history for everybody. Years and years ago, and I don't remember the number, Nevada actually passed staying on daylight savings time. So there wouldn't be the clocks changed, only we'd be on the current time we are now. The bill that's in the Senate right now is the opposite. We would stay on where we were a month ago before we changed. On standard time. Well, okay, you go, okay, I don't care. Just don't change the clock. That sounds nice, but all of a sudden you start looking at, in the middle of summer, that beautiful longest day, the sun's still setting on like 8:30 or something, not the 9, almost 10 o'clock. So all of those students, especially coming into like September, October, the football, women's golf, whatever outdoor sports, it gets dark a heck of a lot quicker, and that does have a big impact. So I hope people realize that it's not something as simple as, I don't care, just quit changing the clock. No, it's a big deal.
Well, and some other considerations too, John, the city brought up that would really impact our flight schedule. Instead of a 2-hour layover, you'd have a 3-hour layover with our Salt Lake City connection, because they're not changing.
Right.
That's disastrous. And then recreation, you may not think it's a big deal, but it does add up if people can't spend an extra hour or 90 minutes at the golf course, where we all have.
It does. It affects me because I run the bar at the golf course. But no, inherently, we would stay out at night longer, daylight. If the sun is up at 3:30, we're not going to get up early at 3:30 and then go be active. No. There's going to be some that do. But my guess is that's probably a lot smaller proportion than how many are going to stay awake slightly longer because it's beautiful out and the sun's still up and we go work in our yard or activities.
At
golf.
5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, I'm not going to get up at 3. So now 10 o'clock's now mid-afternoon to me or something. No.
And so in all fairness, if we could just explain, the bill is the opposite. We just need to have, we don't, now I'm confused.
So
we need to stick with daylight saving.
Correct.
Rather than going back to standard.
Which I don't remember how many years ago Nevada legislature passed that to stay on daylight savings. The problem became, how do we implement it? And I'll explain real quick. The law in Congress, a national law, says you can opt out of daylight savings time. But there's no provision that says, well, you can opt to stay on daylight savings. It's just not there. There's no wording that says you can't do it, but there's no wording that says you can do it. So Nevada approved stay on daylight savings, but then never implemented it. Never did anything. It's one of those bills like, I require everybody to wear green and nobody wears green. They don't care. Well, I know that's a silly comparable, but that's what happened. Well, this is going to say, no, we're going to stay on daylight savings, which Congress does allow. We'll see if they implement it. I don't know. I hope they do not pass it. I'd rather stay on daylight savings because I enjoy the sun coming up, waking me up. But no, it's that in the afternoon, the evening.
I think now that we've had a few weeks to settle in, a lot of us can probably know exactly what you're talking about. Now it feels kind of normal. Yeah, it's just the change is excruciating, I think. So, yes, longer, darker winters.
Hope, especially the school kids and all that, start really looking at, wait a minute, a little bit earlier, waking up in the dark a little bit. Okay, it's tough. I don't like it either. Mm-hmm. But it's the afternoon, the sun's still up. You can go ride your bicycle, go football, basketball, baseball. Well, not basketball, but baseball. Any of those outdoor sports, anything. Go play in your yard. Go walk your dog. I don't know. Those are all activities we all enjoy in the afternoon.
Well, especially, and I'm not sure if the superintendent was meant to talk to you about this, but if the Nevada Department of Education? Anyway, they were looking at adjusting start times. I mean, can you imagine putting that on top of this? Remember that one?
Yeah. Well, that's definitely, in my 100% opinion only, that's professors that are just analyzing things and think they know what they're doing, and I don't believe they do. Kids are very adaptive. They do need their rest and all that, and getting up and when it's dark out is tiring to all of us. That's not just kids, but that now starting at
well, you have to go to bed early.
9 or 10, and next thing you know, they're in bed at 7, and no, the time's not why we have problems in education.
Right. I mean, John, we're both parents, and if you go peek in on your kid and they're on their phone, that's the problem.
Staying up on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever till midnight.
It's a problem for everybody. It's a problem for adults. Yeah. So there's different ways to parent through that, especially without legislating a time change or mandating when schools should start, because especially in rural areas where there's commute time and there are a lot of other considerations.
And we're on the 4-10 schedule. It's not really a 10-hour day, but everybody calls it the 4-10 because of the mind shift. That would even be weirder for us to go, well, wait a minute. You're starting Reno at, let's say they say 8:30, I don't know, whatever the time. So every school in Elko now start 8:30. Well, how does that work for busing? Because that's why we have some split ones now that Adobe may start at 7:30 and Ruby View may start, or Mountain View, or Adobe, might be 45 minutes later because busing.
Right.
Well, once again, that's the legislature in my mind of people that don't really know the big equation of how that affects people.
It's the one size fits all, the unintended consequence, whatever we want to call it. We've been talking about it for decades.
There you go.
So let's see. Anything else either on the agenda or there's so much that's tabled again and completely understandable. Folks have emergencies happen. Work comes, family comes first. I mean, obviously. So.
This is fluke. And then I guess I've been on the commission 8.5 years or whatever now. I don't remember any time that we had, well, guess we can't even vote today. I remember one time at a school district we had the same problem, but that was once again 13 years. I think only once happened. So it is pretty rare.
So we have plenty of time to talk about whatever else John Karr might be working on.
Well, something I'm going to be working on is, I've tried to talk to my other commissioners about picking some goals, and it's one of those things that hasn't quite happened. So I'm just going to start naming my goals and go with them. For instance, the outcome-based grazing. So years and years ago, and I don't, as well as I do, I'm not a details guy. I don't remember the exact timing, but the Forest Service and BLM say, hey, what if we change grazing allotments to be when is the grass green and have the cows out there, as opposed to the cows will be out there from June 10th to June 30th or whatever the case. Well, you and I sitting here go, well, that seems pretty reasonable. Isn't that what your biologist in your office are supposed to be looking at to say when you should go work with the ranchers and go, yeah, get your cows out there, eat the sheet grass when it's all nice and green and first growing. It's the most nutritious, and also get rid of them. Win-win. No, outcome grazing finally had that to test to see if it would work, which is once again still bizarre to me that we're testing to see if that would work. But no, under the Biden administration, and I'm not now blaming the Biden administration, just during that time that it got canceled to even test for it. So under the Trump administration, I hope we can implement it again and go see it can be beneficial to have cows out on the range based on the range. Now, once again, today it snowed. Okay, it's going to put back grass growing for another couple of weeks, but yet all that moisture and everything, now we should have a pretty good spring grass.
Nice green up.
Yeah.
When it warms up, yeah.
So that's when you really want your cows out there, and it's again most nutritious, but also gives a lot of the weeds and stuff that they can't eat in 2 months when it's bone brown. There's no water, no nutrient content, and really blank fiber is all it is. So I'm hoping we can implement that. I'm hoping we can implement predator control, especially crows, ravens, and how devastating they are to the sage hens, and actually even other birds. So I'm hoping we can implement things like that. Now, if you want a bizarre one, we'll try to implement that. What are we doing with wild horses? Can we implement them to be, if you believe they're a native species and they're just like an elk, a deer, whatever, which I do not believe, but that's currently how they are listed, then we should be able to manage them just like any wildlife, not
manage grazing. I mean, they eat everything,
Yeah.
but they stay in one area. That's
Correct.
the problem. So they need to be managed.
But we don't manage them because we treat them as once again, a population of deer, but yet then they're special and they're federal, and it's this weird world of everybody thinks of My Little Pony and it gets all soft-hearted, but yet, I don't know, it's bizarre to me. But let's treat it that way then. Fine. So native animal, and I get a tag, and I'm going to go shoot a horse, and I'm not now saying that's the idea, but maybe that is.
I don't know if anybody would actually want to hunt wild horses.
I don't have a clue either.
Yeah,
but we
I
either
think
need to
that's odd
figure
that
out.
You said that.
My point is, what we need to start managing like wildlife, or we manage them something else. Right now, we're in a weird.
I don't think NDOW wants them either.
It's not managed at all.
Right.
So no, I'm not now saying you and I should go out with our 243 shooting a horse up. I'm not saying that, but it's not managed correctly. So what are our options?
So here's the thing. Martin Paris, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is the local executive director of Nevada Cattlemen's Association. He was on the radio a couple weeks ago, and he's a smart guy, and they have a lot of concerns, obviously, ranching. I mean, maybe he could help you as you're working on your goals. Maybe he could appear regularly before the county commission, because at least he's representing the actual industry concerns, right? Because we do hear people that get up and speak and say this and that about sheep or the history of grazing or pioneers in the trail, and sometimes it's anecdotal, but at least someone like Martin Paris, and ranchers might have some really good ideas about how to manage wild horses locally for the health of the herd, the health of the landscape, to protect the animals, to see them thrive.
I think any reasonable person would much rather have a smaller herd that's healthy, surviving, but then they're managed just like anything. If we had 10 million rabbits in Elko County all of a sudden, what are you going to do? You're going to go, we have a problem, and do something about it. But because horses pull on the heartstrings, we don't do anything about it.
Well, and what will happen eventually is DOJ and this whole federal effort, they will get around to wild horses. And that will cause a lot of consternation, as you mentioned. I mean, not from the people necessarily who see them, who live in proximity, who understand how the animals don't do well when they don't have adequate forage and water, and it's not about putting mining or livestock first. It's just simply there's not an abundance. So if we could get obviously some management before DOJ came in, and just because it's $1 billion a year problem to manage wild horses.
It is nuts.
Right now.
I don't, especially the people that are pushing these things don't have a clue. The do-gooders, they feel warm and fuzzy about these horses.
And they're
they don't
very
understand
passionate.
that, we're spending exactly billions of dollars of wild horses in corrals back in Wyoming and Colorado because they've been rounded up, and they cost what, $100,000 a year per horse to feed or something. It's some wild number. You're going, oh, really? And they're not exactly an endangered species, but I don't know, maybe Doge would do something crazy and ship them to sanctuary cities of horses. I don't know, and unleash horses in the middle of town. I don't know.
Well, and
they do some wild stuff. So
and
who knows?
And it doesn't solve the problem if you do that. But if you do actually consider, I was just talking about bringing really thoughtful people together who actually have some good ideas on how to manage them. Because, gosh, aren't you exhausted by all this stuff that's going on federally? I mean,
I am,
it's exhausting.
But part of the problem is the do-gooders, fine. They want to do good and everything else. But they donate to law firms that aren't do-gooders. They're making money. They want the chaos because then there's lawsuits, and they want to make money off lawsuits against the BLM, which there's money for. We've
Equal
gone over
access
that
to justice.
We've gone over that.
Yes.
So they're making money off, let's just say in this case, you're the person that donates to the whatever fund, the Save the Horses fund. So they take that money, they take the equal access to justice funds, and they just want to have lawsuits to have lawsuits. They don't really care about a horse. So that's really the problem. We can't manage them at all because of attorney firms that are pretending to be environmental groups.
Well, we actually have a federal law that protects them too. So that's the Wild Horse Annie Act of 1972.
Which she even opposed it 10 years later to go, oops.
The unintended consequence.
Exactly.
Nobody would want to see horses standing around in corrals, which is what's happened now because there's simply not enough forage. And
you can't then raise them for horse meat in Canada or France that actually eat horses, or even Mexico, because it's warm and fuzzy, but yet they don't realize that, 15 years in a corral that you can barely even walk around in is a better life?
We've had a lot of talk about something that neither one of us really has all the information about, John.
We don't, but it's my
yeah.
point of this whole conversation now is I want the commission to pick a couple of our top priorities.
Okay.
And wild horse being one of them. Well, what do we want to do? Let's truly, what's some ideas and present them to our
And there
our
might
state
be some places
and
that are
our
working.
Yeah. To go, what can we do? That's an example of crow, the ravens, because sage hen used to be a great one that once again, environmental firms would come in and say, see, it's mining, it's ranching, it's killed all the birds. No, it's predator control. Every UNR or all these young people that come out and study it, no. Almost all of them said no. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about
And we should explain that ravens,
eat
eggs. Yeah, I was just going to say they don't kill sage grouse. They go after the eggs. So
the population of the breeding pair is about a 10% as opposed to it should be 60, 70 of success.
Okay. So that's where we are. So those are among your goals, looking again at outcome-based grazing, which is, scientists are using evidence to determine conditions, predator control, and then maybe managing wild horses. So those are some big things, right? As far as
I think we're finally making progress on the switch in from Utah television district to...
Oh, you really think so?
Well, yeah. I hope I don't eat crow in a year, then we're still having this conversation. But no, I think we finally almost checked all the boxes, and Senator Masso's office and Rosen's office are all on board. So I'm hoping in the next 2 months we'll finally be able to announce on here that
would be amazing.
Getting news from Reno, our own state, but that's another one on the list. I still think there's some work to do with the dispatch center, but I think we've made a lot of progress there on updating it both technically, but then also how it's ran.
I know there's a E911 meeting tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay. Anything on that agenda that jumps out? Or
no, nothing special. Just the typical upgrades they're reviewing. Some of our upgrades aren't as good as we had thought they were going to be, so they're reviewing that as well. But some of the things in the past too, the different frequencies the city uses versus the county, and it's a bigger deal to change than it should. You and I just go, we'll get on the same frequency, but it's not that easy. So there's a lot to look at, but we are making progress.
Okay. We do hear appreciation from local law enforcement, obviously, because that means the world to them so they can communicate. And Nevada's the most mountainous state, so it's difficult. And that's why it's important that we have the latest technology, that we can overcome these mountain ranges,
right,
for example. But yeah, fascinating about the DMA, what you're talking about, the designated market area for TV, for television signals. I do know a lot about this because we don't have a local TV station anymore because of this DMA. So when, early on when KENV TV was established here in Elko by then owner Jim Rogers of Sunbelt Broadcasting, with Dorothy Gallagher, who was on the Board of Regents, they happened to be friends and they happened to like to do good things for small communities, both of them. And so Dorothy said to Jim, I was there when they told the story. They said, Elko needs a TV station. So Jim Rogers of Sunbelt, his goal was to have this network of TV stations all across Nevada, and he put KENV on the air. Joe Doucette, who's probably listening right now, was among the engineers who helped to bring the station on. It had a great run. But sadly, when Jim Rogers passed away, John, the family sold to Sinclair, and Sinclair's famously corporate, and it was all about the bottom line. It wasn't about delivering news to small communities across the state. So then KSL came over and said, well, we were letting KENV in Sunbelt. They're in our footprint. They're an NBC affiliate, but we're the NBC giant. And we don't actually see eye to eye with Sinclair. Now, this is stuff, right, that they wouldn't say in the public meeting, but so basically what happened is KSL said, we can continue to serve you with maybe some news stories on a website. And that was what they proposed to do, John. And so sadly, we lost our KENV now is, I think, one of those TV stations that runs Westerns 24/7 or something like that. I don't even know.
Fantastic.
It makes me sad. I can't even think about it. But yeah, so because of this crazy DMA, the reason that we were told that Congress didn't want to change it is because Nevada Broadcasters Association, they don't go along with it because they have a California market on the northern Nevada side with the same sort of arrangement. And they make a ton of money from California advertisers. So if somehow these senators are working on getting us a carve out, that'd be great. Because if you guys want to make money over there, northern Nevada, California, great. But here in northeastern Nevada, it's not that lucrative of a market. We're not seeing Elko people advertise on KSL or any of the other Utah stations broadcasting here. So we just like to have Nevada news in Nevada. So
yeah, you pretty much said it exactly. Especially during the COVID times, and I don't have a whole lot of positive to say about that whole thing, but it was still discouraging that we couldn't. What is the Reno news, Vegas news, whatever? What is the governor saying?
Our governor, right? Not Utah's
We're
governor.
hearing Utah, or our elections are horrible. How many
elections are terrible?
Thousands and thousands of ads do you have for a Utah senator, Utah governor, Utah, and you're like,
and it's why we need to have
really?
Connecting flights too. I mean, this is just, let's just be honest. We need legislators, we need representatives who are going to Carson City, making friends, talking to people, saying, look, this political stuff, it doesn't do anybody any good. What we need is to connect Reno, Las Vegas, and Elko. So we can fly there and enjoy the things that we help to build as taxpayers, whether they're sports arenas or other attractions. And then you guys can come out here, fly out here and enjoy cowboy poetry and the Ruby Mountains and fly fishing and the marshes, all the cool things. But instead we get all this nonsense. We need the Air Service Development Bill passed, John. We need that legislation.
Pretty hard to argue with that one because I'm 100% agreeing with you.
Well, I don't want to argue either.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
I just get frustrated.
You even said it way more eloquently than I would have, because you're right, though. I'd much rather fly to Reno just because, well, especially legislature ever wants to go to Carson. What a miserable, lovely drive that is, whereas everybody else has an airfare to Vegas.
It's a disconnect. We're totally disconnected. And you think we don't resent that? Of course we resent that. Yeah.
Which I also think it's part of the reason we're, I don't want to say nobody, but treated as nobody, because none of the Vegas or Reno, Washoe legislators, if it was easy to come out here, they might take a trip out here and actually go, oh, well, wait a minute. We see your point is you are different than Vegas. You are different than Reno. We see why that might negatively affect you. And maybe your bill's right for your area, but could you carve out a niche that it doesn't have to affect us the same way? Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Oh, you have to go.
No.
Oh, okay.
Once again, talking to the school district on this thing. But yes, I do got to get going because I have the
You have
the
a fire
commission
meeting at 1:15.
Correct.
Thank you, John. Anyway, I don't know how we got talking about this, but I'm glad that we did because there wasn't much on the agenda that we can go over. In the next 2 weeks, most of this stuff will be back on the agenda.
Oh, yes, it will.
Yeah, so good luck at the fire meeting. Chief Peterson will present the budget, and then you and Brian Gale will achieve whatever you can accomplish and hopefully get some
like I said, I think Brian and Rex, or not Brian, but Delmo and Rex will be able to call in and at least get that part done. And like I said, we'll save all other agenda items for a couple weeks from now.
Thanks, John. John Karr is our Elko County Commission Chair here on Elko Live on KELK.